The river moved with a steady, rhythmic pulse, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. Iris and Lily knelt on the slick bank, their wings catching the dim light of the overcast sky. Nets cast, water rippled, silver fish spilled, gray clouds bloomed, rain thickened. She tugged on the edge of the net. The river is rising, Iris. We must return to the village before the path disappears. Iris did not look up. She tossed another wriggling fish into their woven basket and reached for the net again. Her movements were quick, driven by the ease of the harvest. Just one more catch, Lily. The river is generous today. Why leave when the water gives so much? Iris ignored the encroaching tide, focused entirely on the dark, swirling current, unaware that the river was no longer just a source of food, but a trap closing around them. Deep beneath the churning surface, Queen Coral watched the bank. Her tail lashed against the stone, sending vibrations through the riverbed. She raised a hand, and the sky responded. The soft mist vanished, replaced by a violent, relentless deluge that hammered the earth. The riverbanks gave way with a sound like tearing metal. Water surged over the land, turning the forest floor into a swamp. In the village, the mud houses stood no chance. The current tore through the streets, carrying away fences and debris. Barnaby's feet slipped on wet thatch atop the highest roof, wand aglow against the watery wall. Queen Coral rose. Flood roared, his plea lost. Giant form looms, surveying shattered homes. Greedy fairies, Barnaby, seek the carpenter in the next village. Build floating homes, or the river will claim everything that remains. She sank back into the dark current. The forest offered no sanctuary, only deeper shadows and the relentless drumming of the storm against the canopy. Iris and Lily sprinted through the undergrowth, their movements hampered by the heavy, water-soaked air. Every branch they pushed aside snapped back with stinging force. They were exposed, their presence marked by the faint, rhythmic glow they emitted in the gloom. Iris skidded to a halt near a cluster of ancient, gnarled trees, her chest heaving. She looked back toward the village, where the roar of the river still echoed. "We cannot stay like this," she said, her voice sharp with panic. "The Queen is watching the sky. If she sees us, the forest will not save us." They stood in the dark, listening. The sound of rushing water seemed to follow them, creeping through the roots of the trees. Lily's face tightened. "We must hide." With a sharp, sudden snap of fingers, the light faded. The weight on their backs vanished. They stood still, breathing hard, looking at their own hands in the dim light. The forest path ended at a small, weathered cottage tucked beneath a cluster of weeping willows. The structure leaned against the wind, its wood groaning under the pressure of the storm. Iris and Lily hesitated at the threshold, their new human forms feeling heavy and uncoordinated. They knocked, but the door swung open on its own, unlatched and yielding. Inside, the air was stagnant, smelling of damp earth and cold ash. A single candle flickered on a table, casting long, erratic shadows. Martha shivered, gasping, frail form lost in bed. Creaking floorboards, pale skin turned away. The kitchen was entirely bare. No bread, no grain, not even a scrap of dried fruit remained. Lily squeezed the woman's hand, feeling the brittle bones. "We will find food," Lily whispered. The storm outside continued to lash against the walls, but the true crisis was here, in the silence. They stepped back out into the deluge, the rain turning the ground into a slick, treacherous path toward the river. The water was still rising, churning with debris and the remnants of the forest floor. Iris scanned the dark, swirling water. She knew the danger of using their power while the Queen still held dominion over the water, but the silence of the empty kitchen drove her forward. She stood, took a steadying breath, and reached into the air, pulling at the invisible threads of energy that still lingered within her. The surface rippled, then surged upward. A shimmering, translucent net formed from the air itself, plunging deep into the black depths. The water resisted, pulling against her with immense force, but she held firm, her knuckles white as she anchored herself to a nearby root. With a sharp, sudden heave, she pulled the net toward the bank. It broke the surface, heavy and glistening, filled with silver fish. Lily watched the silver pile, then turned back to the churning river. She did not hesitate. She reached out, mirroring the focus she had just witnessed, and cast her intent into the dark, swirling current. The water did not ripple this time. It boiled. A violent tremor ran through the bank, vibrating up through her feet. She felt a sudden, massive resistance, as if she had hooked the very foundation of the riverbed. She braced her heels against the mud. The air around them began to hum, a low-frequency vibration that made the rain droplets hang suspended for a heartbeat. She pulled again, her muscles straining, and the river erupted. A golden light, blinding and intense, broke through the surface. The water churned in a wide, violent vortex, spinning debris and silt into the air. Something heavy, something alive, was fighting. The boundary between the river and the bank dissolved in a spray of glowing foam, and the true weight of the catch finally broke the surface. The golden mass hit the grass with a wet, heavy thud that shook the ground beneath them. The light that had blinded the forest began to pulse, then shrink, drawing inward until it was no larger than a heartbeat. Iris and Lily scrambled backward, their hands pressed into the mud, watching as the scales dissolved into skin and the fins retracted into limbs. The air crackled one last time, a sharp pop of static that sent a gust of wind through the clearing. Then, silence. A man lay on the grass, his chest heaving as he gulped down the cool, rain-heavy air. He coughed, his body arching as if fighting to remember how to breathe. He rolled onto his side, his eyes wide and unfocused, searching the dark trees before locking onto the two girls. He pushed himself up, his movements stiff and uncoordinated, and reached out a trembling hand toward them. "The water!" he gasped. "You broke the curse," he whispered. He stood up, swaying as he found his balance, and took a step toward them. The relief of the moment vanished instantly. The river, which had been receding, suddenly surged against the bank with a force that tore chunks of earth into the current. The water rose in a jagged, towering wall, blocking out the faint moonlight. Iris and Lily scrambled to their feet, grabbing the prince to pull him away from the encroaching flood. The ground beneath them groaned, then gave way, sliding into the churning depths. A massive spray of water erupted upward, drenching the entire clearing in a freezing, salty mist. From the heart of the vortex, a figure lunged forward, slamming onto the mud with enough impact to crack the stones nearby. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of brine and ozone. The figure stood, towering over the bank, her presence forcing the very rain to veer away from her path. She pointed a finger toward the prince, then swung her gaze toward the girls, her eyes fixed on them with a predatory intensity. "You stole him!" she roared, her voice vibrating through the ground and shaking the trees. The sound was not human. It was the grinding of tectonic plates, a low, resonant boom that made the air itself feel brittle. She took a step forward, the mud squelching under her weight, and the river rose behind her like a loyal hound, ready to strike. The girls stood frozen, the weight of her fury pinning them to the spot as the forest fell into a terrified, absolute silence. The heavy thud of a door hitting the wall echoed through the clearing. Granny Martha stood on the threshold of her cottage, her hand gripping the frame so tightly her knuckles turned white. She took one step into the rain, her eyes darting between the towering figure from the river, the man standing on the grass, and the two girls who stood trembling before her. She looked at the space where the girls' backs should have been, then at the ground where the magic had just faded. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the rhythmic drip of rain from the leaves. Granny Martha let out a sharp, ragged breath, her gaze locking onto Iris and Lily. She did not speak. She did not move. She simply stared, her mouth slightly open, as the reality of what she had witnessed took hold. The prince looked at the older woman, then back at the river, his shoulders slumping as he realized the cost of his freedom. The mermaid remained poised, her chest heaving, waiting for the girls to defend the impossible. Iris and Lily stood motionless, their hands still raised from the spell, their secret laid bare in the mud and the rain. The forest floor seemed to hold its breath. Every character remained locked in place, a tableau of shock and confusion. Fey truth hung, no escape seen. Churning river, falling rain, trapped in miracle's ruin.